Welcome back to Faster and Louder, guys. If you're like me and a lot of other people building 5.7 Hemis, you've probably put some thought into whether you should do a stroker kit or just go with a supercharger. I actually have some notes with me because this is a lot to actually remember in my head. So I'm gonna kind of go down a list of the pros and the cons between a stroker kit and a Whipple supercharger. So in this example, I'm gonna be going with a 392 stroker kit for the 5.7 and the Whipple, I believe it's a 2.9 liter supercharger. Okay, so basically with the stroker kit, you're getting all forged internals. Nice. You're basically going from your regular pistons, connecting rods, and crank to forged everything. So it's going to be able to handle a lot more compression in the way of just naturally aspirated compression or with forced induction. So if you want to make more power with a supercharger, you can still do a stroker kit. But I'm going to be going off of like them completely separate. So this will basically just be considering the stroker being done with nothing else and the supercharger being done with nothing else. So with the stroker kit, you have to do a few other things. It's not just the rotating assembly. So the rotating assembly that I did find was a scat stroker kit, and it was $2,100 with the connecting rods, pistons, and crank. And also came with rod bearings, main bearings, and piston rings. So $2,100 just for that kit. When you do the stroker kit, you kind of need to match some other parts with it as well, which means you're gonna need probably a custom grind camshaft because there's really nothing off the shelf for stroker Hemis. It's kind of a more unique thing to do with a modern Hemi. So a custom cam grind is probably going to run you right around $1,000. You're going to need new valve train components, which is like valve springs, maybe lifters, depending on how old your engine is, stuff like that. I just put $600, which may be, it might actually be a little bit more. I put $300 for gaskets. You're going to have to go to a machine shop to have it bored out to whatever you need it to be. I mean, if your engine's only like 20,000 miles, you might get away with just keeping it standard. But most people, like myself, are gonna have to get the cylinders bored out, probably like 20 or 30 over, something like that, which is usually about $250, plus I put $100 for cleaning in there. You're gonna need a lot of just random hardware, like head bolts. You're gonna need main studs, stuff like that. I put $800 for that. And then when everything is done, you're gonna have to get another custom tune. There's a shop around here that I like to go to, and it's $400 for a custom tune at that shop. Could be a lot more. It could be as much as, I've seen like $800, $900. That's basically if you do everything yourself. So if you do all that yourself, you're looking at about $5,500 based on those estimates. But if you bring it to a shop or you have somebody else do it for you, you can expect to probably pay maybe $2,000 in labor, just a rough guess. Then looking at the supercharger, that's a complete kit is $8,000, just right off the bat, $8,000. So right there, I mean, that's kind of gonna be maybe a deciding factor is just how much money it costs, because it is more money outright. But one nice thing about this kit is it has pretty much everything that you're gonna need. It has all the gaskets, it has bigger fuel injectors, it has a fuel pump booster, it has all the hardware, cold air intake, it has a tuner that comes with it so you can put the custom tune on there with the supercharger. It comes with a catch can, and it even has a 1-year warranty on the actual parts for the supercharger, which does not cover any damages to your engine, but if something happens with the supercharger itself, then it'll be covered. That $8,000 is if you do it yourself. If you buy this kit and you just put it on yourself, it'll be $8,000, but it's still gonna cost you $1,000 to maybe $1,500 on labor depending on where you go. It is a decent amount of work. Even though it's way more simple. You don't really have to take apart anything in your engine, like the actual block. You don't really have to do anything. It's pretty much taking the intake off and putting on a supercharger, but it's still pretty intensive, so it can cost a little bit on labor still. The pros and the cons. This is kind of another important deciding factor, because it really just depends on what you want to do with your engine. If you want simplicity, the supercharger is easily the better way to go. It's just, like I said, you're just taking like one thing off and you're pretty much replacing it with the supercharger. You don't really have to dig into the engine very much. That's definitely a way to go if you want simplicity. Initially, it's more expensive. It's just, like I said, you're talking the difference of $8,000 to $5,500. But that gets me into another thing entirely, is that the stroker is cheaper by itself, but the stroker kit requires a lot of other things to make it work properly, you know? Like the stroker kit's only $2,000, but then you gotta add in the cam, and then there's other stuff altogether, like headers. You pretty much have to have long tube headers with a stroker kit in order to make it breathe and actually get the power capability out of it. So you need headers, head work, like actual porting and polishing of the heads is highly recommended. The torque converter with a higher stall if you have automatic, maybe even gearing if you have a manual transmission. Usually manuals are geared pretty good, so you might not have to worry about that. But yeah, the other pros and cons for the supercharger is, for a supercharger it's a lot easier to reverse. Like if you want to get rid of it, go back to stock, you just take the supercharger off and put all your old stuff back on and go back to a regular tune and you're pretty much good. So one of the things with the stroker kit is you're gonna have a lot less streetable of a combo. So if you're looking for a more racing type of engine, just like straight up racing, like badass, like built for the drag strip, then maybe a stroker kit is more up your alley. The horsepower that you can look to make with the 392 stroker kit is going to be roughly, a lot of people say like 430 to 450 rear wheel horsepower. You can make more with more extreme kits. I just made a video about a 414 stroker kit, and they were saying with supporting mods, like I was just talking about, it'll make over 500 rear wheel horsepower, which is pretty crazy. But the Whipple supercharger, even though it's more expensive, it's simple, and you just slap that thing on there and you're probably gonna make at least 500 horsepower at the rear wheels without too much trouble. And I've seen people making as much as 600 depending on what they got. Like they have drop-in forged kits that you can put in a 5.7, so it's all like the same everything, it's just all forged. And then you can run, you can run a lot of boost. You can run like 18 pounds of boost on 5.7 and you can make over 600 horsepower at the rear wheels, which is crazy. Anyways, that's pretty much my quick summary on things to consider when you're trying to decide between getting a stroker kit or a supercharger. And honestly, the whole reason why I'm doing this video is because I'm kind of trying to decide myself. And it's tough because I think stroker kits are cool. Like it's more horsepower via more displacement, like actual naturally aspirated displacement, and it's still got that big cam sound and everything, and I love that. I think it's really cool, and not a lot of people do it. I don't think I've ever actually in person seen anybody do a stroker kit, but I have seen a ton of superchargers. You go to like any car show and there's people with superchargers. It's just so much more accessible and simple to do. It really does make more logical sense to go with the supercharger, but I don't know if I want to do the logical choice. So what do you want to do? What are you going to do? Are you going to go with the logical supercharger, or are you going to go with a crazy, doesn't make sense stroker kit? Let me know in the comments. Thanks for watching, guys. Have a good one.